Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. Well, all good things must come to an end. And our series of the 5 greatest performers at everything, conductors and instrumentalists and singers and things, I think we've done a pretty goodly amount. 64 videos, I think we're up to, somewhere in there. And the truth of the matter is, we've had wonderful, wonderful discussions. You've been fabulous participants. We've given, I think, people interested in classical music a lot to think about, to explore, to discuss, to evaluate, all of these things. It's been a wonderful journey. And there's another one coming, I'm telling you right now. But for the moment, we're going to conclude with the 5 greatest classical performing musicians of all time, as a sort of fitting summary of everything that we've done so far. And I'm very interested to get your lists, provided that none of them do the same thing. In other words, I've got a singer, a conductor, a pianist, a violinist, a cellist, or whatever. They've got to do different stuff. And as always, I'm so much more interested in variety, the range of what's out there, rather than being very narrow in our outlook. And you've been wonderful in coming up with just a really broad and interesting selection of people and stuff for your own lists. So here are the 5. And of course, I'm interested in you giving us your 5. Number 1, Maria Callas. Maria Callas redefined what an opera singer could be. She really did. When you think about it, she revived a huge swath of the repertoire. She forced everybody to take it seriously. Singers were, before Maria Callas, singers were either sort of these pompous German creatures that ran around the stage and usually dropped dead in the middle of a Wagner opera, or they were canaries. These flighty Italian things. It's not much intelligence. The plots were silly. Everybody was out there screaming their guts out. And Maria Callas was a musician's musician and an amazing singer because of her intelligence, her sincerity, her absolute do or die until death commitment to everything that she did. She proved that even the flightiest operatic roles, some of the really flightiest operatic roles, Lucia de Lammermoor and, people who went tooting along in Coloratura Heights, were actually flesh and blood characters to be taken seriously, who could be inexpressibly moving and human. And that was her gift. And she really redefined what opera was all about. And that was really an incredible achievement, because she was a musician who happened to be a singer. And that's where we were with Maria Callas. Next, Leonard Bernstein. Now, I know Leonard Bernstein is controversial for some people. He creates, there's a lot of polarization. I see people, I hate Bernstein. I can't actually believe anybody who knows his output in toto or understands what he achieved can hate him. That's just crazy as far as I'm concerned, because he was the most versatile conductor who ever lived, frankly. There was nothing he could not do. The only but one who came as close to him is Charles Mackerras. But Bernstein added an extra dimension to his musical life, because he was also an outstanding composer and a superb educator, which is part of his performance life. His work as a performer was part of the young person's concerts and all that other stuff that he did, all those lectures and talks and stuff. Unbelievably gifted. And when you think about all of the things he did well, and brought to our attention in doing them well, Haydn, Mahler, Sibelius, Nielsen, Mendelssohn, it's just Schumann. The list is incredible. Then all the American music, Copland and Diamond and really Roy Harris and Randall Thompson, and, really astonishing stuff. And his own music, of course. It really adds up to a career unlike any other in the 20th century. And whether you like him or not, if you're honest, you have to acknowledge what he achieved, what he did, and the gifts that he shared with the rest of us. Really an astonishing genius. And I remember always Christa Ludwig's comments about the three greatest conductors she worked with. One was Karl Böhm, who was the theater guy, who understood the way the drama worked. Karajan, she said, who set up the most gorgeous orchestral accompaniments that just enveloped you, and you could float on top of them. And she said, and Leonard Bernstein, who was a genius. She said they were great conductors, they were great musicians, but Bernstein, she said, was a genius, because under Bernstein she understood more of what music was, what music could do, the range and intensity of music, and that was Bernstein. So after Bernstein, well, who have we got? Pablo Casals. I think people tend to underrate Casals. I mean, everyone says, well, he's a great cellist, and we have recordings, and most of the better sounding ones come from the end of his career when he wasn't always in the best shape technically. But Casals was an extraordinary musician. His conducting was as great as his cello playing. It really was. If you listen to all those Marlborough recordings of Mozart symphonies and Beethoven symphonies and things, he was an exceptional musician in everything that he did. His cello playing, of course, was outstanding. His rediscovery of the Bach cello suites gave cellists something to do for the rest of their recorded history. No question about that. He was a supreme chamber music partner. He really reimagined the technique of the cello and the possibilities of the instrument as something to be taken seriously, as a major solo instrument. And he was a composer too, actually. I mean, he wrote some very good music himself. He was a genuine force in the world of music. Of course, there was the Casals Festival in Puerto Rico and all this other stuff that he did. We still haven't quite come to grips with him in terms of his legacy, because his principal label, Sony, really needs to do a complete Casals edition, and it looks like they're never going to do anything, so we're kind of screwed, I think, as far as that's concerned, so that we can understand his career whole. But he was a performer of unbelievable musicality and intensity and expressive point, and just, again, all of these names that I'm coming up with, they are musicians first, and they happen to have some specialties, but they were all extraordinarily comprehensive musicians, which means they were really extraordinarily comprehensive human beings, because that's what they were sharing with us, their humanity and their integrity as artists. So after Pablo Casals, Arthur Rubinstein, I think I threw the TH in for this particular list. He did it both ways. Arthur Rubinstein was another one of those amazing musicians who was a generalist in the best sense. When you think about it, his favorite composer was Brahms. He did exceptional Brahms. He did exceptional Beethoven, not as much as the Beethoven specialist pianists necessarily, because he didn't do like a complete sonata cycle or something like that, but who cares, really? I mean, he did fabulous French music. He did wonderful Russian music. His discography was exceptional. And of course, in Chopin, he was the voice of Chopin for generations of musicians. And Chopin is arguably the greatest composer for the piano that ever lived, sort of, kind of. He was the ultimate piano guy. And Rubinstein was his ultimate exponent. Now, again, there'll be, especially in the world of piano, oh my God, people who will poo-poo this and say, no, he wasn't as great as so-and-so or such and such. And it doesn't matter. We're talking about his career as a whole on disc. The evidence, the recorded evidence that's there for all of us to listen to and share. because that's what really matters. I mean, you can talk about some of these people, about fabulous. I saw a concert in 1947. It was the most amazing event of my life. Who cares? The rest of us can't share in it. This has to be something we can all share, and where the evidence is there. There's this enormous Rubinstein edition of 200, I don't know how many hundreds of discs, with unbelievably superb piano playing of an unimaginably wide range of composers. And that's why he's definitely on the list, especially in the piano division. Just an exceptional musician. And last but not least, and for the same reasons as Rubinstein, Jascha Heifetz. I am so tired of hearing people say, oh, he's always fast and cold. He wasn't cold. He was never cold. He was quick. He was quick because he could do it. Unlike so many other violinists. I mean, Heifetz could do anything with his instrument. He has remained to this day, for all the fetching and moaning, and people will talk about other fabulous violinists. I mean, amazing. Oistrakh, Milstein, just great, great, great violinists. But Heifetz was Heifetz. He was the non-pari exemplar of everything that the violin could be and should be. And again, his range of repertoire was extraordinary. From Mozart to Korngold, from Bach to Korngold, from everybody to Korngold and beyond. People wrote concertos for him. He played them. The Walton, aside from the Korngold, the Walton concerto, what's his name? Castelnuovo Tedesco. I mean, all kinds of fabulous things that were done for him. He was a tough guy. Apparently, he was a difficult person. He was a little bit aloof, and that added to this myth that as a performer he was cold. Because his own character seemed somewhat distant, but not when he was playing music, not in the music, and not the way he treated the music. If you look at, as with Arthur Rubinstein and Pablo Casals, all three of these guys were fabulous chamber music partners. They collaborated wholeheartedly. Heifetz, some people say, was sort of dominated his collaborators, not when they were the best in the business. It's not always true. It's true sometimes when, the pianist wasn't anybody special, but when he was with Rubinstein, no, it was a partnership of equals. He may have been first among equals because the violin usually gets the tune, which is only logical, but he was definitely, Heifetz, Rubinstein, Piatigorsky, when they were all playing together, it was something special, something extraordinarily special. I mean, he always dressed to play music, whether he was, doing it at home or in the bathroom. He wore a tie. He would get dressed. And, people gathered at his home to make music. It was his life. It was his gift. It was his gift to us. And he remains one of the greatest classical performing musicians of all time, hands down. So that, my friends, is my list of 5 to conclude this wonderful, wonderful series. And please, let me have your 5, and then let's see what happens in our next journey through the greatness that is classical music. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.